Hello friends, welcome back. Here we are looking at the Link versus Bitcoin prices. Now let's be fair to the Link Shminky. Bitcoin's had a rise up in prices over the last wee while, so if we look over to the Bitcoin prices, this is BitMEX for instance, a lot of mess on this chart, whatever, we're moving up here to, and we've gone up above, several areas of resistance and whatnot that we've had on the charts for a while. In fact, I've not talked about the BitMEX chart for a while, but whatever. We've gone up above this sort of crucial one at 9,500 on the spot prices there, and in the CME land we filled in this gap that we had and whatnot. So like overall that impact on the Link versus Bitcoin pairing has been to see the prices come down a bit here, but we're still in this consolidating area, still doing the same thing as we were doing before. Pick it up like that, stick it on log perhaps, see what its difference is like, nominal, and question whether or not this angle here of this lower side is right as well for a second. Just bring this over a bit and question it just a little bit and say, is this right? Is that right? Is it maybe better from there up to there, getting this touch and this touch? This touch is part of this overall thing. Anyway, overall we're kind of splitting hairs at this point as we look at this. This is still just doing its thing in the meantime. Going to keep an eye on a couple of different elements of things. Are we going to see the Bitcoin prices themselves go up or down over the next wee while, and how's that dynamic going to relate to in relation to the dollar prices? So just going on again over to the dollar prices and asking the questions. You can see that in this area, as we have our madness drawn on the chart, that this is really where we were asking questions yesterday, and the same story from yesterday actually remains in play. Will we break into this area? As you can see, we've tried a few times, and pardon me, overall, we can see that the prices are kind of locked in this zone between this lower resistance area, before making it back into there again. Will we make it in there, or will we stay, or will we actually see something else develop? Perhaps, for instance, like a shoulder, a head, and a shoulder, and us get a reversal pattern to reverse this trend, because the trend has been towards the upside, remember, in terms of the dollar prices. So if we were to see a head and shoulders of any type, you'd expect it to be a normal one, as opposed to inverse, and then you'd expect the result to be a downward price action as a result of that. So if that were to be the case, we could start looking at that. Should we not, should this price action here come up as just as high as sort of the 390s and then break down again? So it kind of becomes more crucial from the bullish point of view to start moving up into these $4 areas, 420 being our target towards the top side in a bullish case outcome. Of course, then if you were to have some sort of head and shoulders type effect on there, and you were to be quite brutal about things and take it sort of wick to wick there in terms of that movement, and then stick it over here and call that the neckline in around that area, where does that take us all the way down to our line, our blue line here at $2.85, where the 382 is on a Fibonacci retracement drawn in from the high there to the low down here, and the sort of Valentine's Day to February type time, to March the 13th type time frame. So that's what you would have if that were to play out. Of course, though, what we're looking at is generally just in this area, like I was saying beforehand. Volume continues to diminish. I'm going to just borrow this stick here, pop that end there, drag that down, and show you that the volume continues to diminish here on this chart. So like there you go. As we're so we're not seeing sort of the increase in volume that you might want to have, which is fine in a sense that it gives us a couple of areas to look for. For instance, breaking above that previous high there and at the $4 area with the increase in volume, would be interesting. Breaking down below our areas here, like the 370 area, and of course where this sort of supposed neckline is at 350 or whatever, with that volume would also be more, would give us more clarity. So this volume diminishing in a sense, and continue to diminish really right down to quite lows. As we look to the left, like down here, low, looking down the way, if we're getting quite tight in terms of the volume. If we look back historically, of course, back then there was less liquidity in the market, less trading happening, and less volume as a result of that. But overall, you could say comparatively, this is relatively quite tight in that sense too. So maybe we'll start to see something happen soon enough. This low here being, this general shape of this thing is sort of expansive, expanding in general, overall. But you can say that perhaps we're in this sort of channel like this now, having been in this sort of one before, and the question mark about whether or not we break above this line actually kind of comes in as saying that, you know, that would put us in at the median line of this channel that we're in just now. So, you know, if that were to happen instead, and you'd be thinking about things along this perspective, you know, you've still got this question mark just in here, but it gives you that little bit more breathing room should we only come up and make a really shallow higher high than over here, and for instance, don't go up as high as our wick or as high as the top of this channel. So there's your sort of your context generally in terms of how this is going. But of course, as you see things, you know, going up like that at one point, then going up like that at one point, then going up like that at one point, you don't want this to continue, you know, and then start going down like that at one point, you know, in the future, just as a sort of the way that this has been progressing. So we do want to see things kick in at some point fairly soon to give us an idea of where the trend could be going. Look at that, that's very percussion-y with my tapping of that button. So anyway, that's basically kind of going to do us for today. If we take a look at the oscillators and we see that this low is lower than this low is lower than this low, this low is lower than this low, this one isn't on the MACD, so we've had a tightening up of things here. There's a potential for bearish or bullish divergence just ever so slightly here on the MACD, so we can keep an eye out for how that progresses. But we know that we've got, if I leave that as green because it's bullish, I suppose, and then put a couple of red ones on, we know that we've got this convergence here in terms of these other oscillators just now. Looking to see how this operates in and around this area, of which is potentially could be considered to be oversold if you break into this area during an uptrend. But if it starts trending towards the downside, then there's a lot more room obviously to go for that momentum. So see how things go in around this area. There's that node of on the VPVR and the 370 area, all that stuff. That's what we're looking to look out for in the mean time overall. This line here as well of the 388 having still operated as a terms of resistance for us, and that kind of comes into consideration again for this right hand shoulder if we were to have one. And then finishing off by just going back over to here and saying, so if the prices on Bitcoin were to suddenly just shudder away off somewhere, then maybe this would have a knock-on effect. It kind of it has that dynamic with the dollar pricing. We'll see how it goes. Overall, you've got this upward move up, you know, this could potentially be the start of us trending towards the top or upper side here, which would be down in a fairly organic way. Just don't want to see the prices come any lower than there. That's okay. This is a high. Could be a lower high. We could go on and then make another higher, you know, higher high here and have a trend towards the top side of this thing. The bigger more macro target is that 50,000 Satoshi level. The in between times, if you know, the first question comes in at 40,000, where we have a 236 Fibonacci at, and that's where that's the two first questions on that thing. And then failing that, and of course we have our blue line here at 39,500, which are currently below, and then the lower end of this channel thing, symmetrical triangle, sorry, where we'd be looking at coming in below 37,000, would be seeing us putting in a lower low and actually going down the way there. So we'll come back and revisit this again tomorrow, because as always we do these videos every single day. Hope that's given you enough context on your own trading for you to be able to make wiser and more salient decisions. That's actually almost a pun when you're talking about breakouts and stuff like that, but we'll not go into language. We don't need to talk about language too much. Anyway, I hope that you make some more some good decisions off the back of that. I'm not a financial advisor, none of this financial advice. Good luck with your trading out there. Stay safe, don't breathe on, near, under, above, or surrounded by anybody else, and don't touch anybody in the world, and make sure you stay safe out there. Okay, so good luck with everything, and thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate even just watching it right up to this point here. Means you're a super fantastic hero. That helps the stats so much. I'd love to get to 1,000 subscribers so that I can actually avoid burnouts by taking weekends off from time to time. And if you've got a friend out there you think might enjoy this video, please go ahead and share it with them, because a friend of yours is a friend of ours. We're just waiting to meet them. I'm eager and happy for all of that. So thank you so much. I'll catch you next time.